As many of you know, I have been an advocate for an incredible patriot and a patriot's family. Last name Flynn, first name's General Michael T. Flynn. I truly believe he has been set up by the deep state. And the reason is because of his honesty and his courage for standing up for freedom and liberty. I've had his sister, Barbara Flynn-Redgate, on our show before. She made a profound impact, positive impact, on each and every person who took the time to listen to that interview, and then we put it up on YouTube and viewed it on YouTube. I'm honored to have Barbara Flynn-Redgate back with us today. She is the proud sister of retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn and is the trustee of the Mike Flynn Legal Defense Fund. By the way, I have donated several times to the Mike Flynn Defense Fund. I know finances are tight for everybody in our country, but I truly believe it is an investment in the defense of a patriot, General Flynn, but it's also in defense of every American's freedoms and liberties, because that's what he's fighting, the deep state, and his brilliant attorney, Sidney Powell, are fighting. They're fighting for every American, in addition to General Flynn. MikeFlynnDefenseFund.org, MikeFlynnDefenseFund.org. Barbara is the trustee of the Mike Flynn Legal Defense Fund. Barbara is also a retired high school physics teacher. She was a physics teacher for 30 years. She's a wife of a retired naval aviator, a mother of 3 fantastic daughters, and is also the proud sister of 7 Flynn siblings. It's my honor to welcome back to Operation Freedom, Barbara Flynn-Redgate. Barb, welcome back to Operation Freedom.
Oh, hi, Dr. Dave. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Just double-checking to see if I'm on live.
You're perfect, Barb. Now, Barb, there's been a lot going on the past couple of weeks, but in particular, Sidney Powell and your brother, General Mike, dropped a bomb on January 14th this past week. And here's what Sidney tweeted. We just filed a motion to withdraw the plea of General Flynn because the government acted in bad faith with vindictiveness and breached the plea agreement pursuant to which he has cooperated fully at great personal expense and held back nothing, according to prosecutors, until General Flynn refused to lie on demand from prosecutors in the what's called Rafikian case. Van Grok, the prosecutor, exploded. Now his new sentencing memo seeks to send General Flynn to prison. This motion to withdraw sent shockwaves through the deep state, Barb.
I know. We're so, I don't know if you want me to start with my thoughts on it, Dave, or ask me a particular question.
No, fire ahead. Fire ahead on your thoughts on the withdrawal.
Because I know I've only got about 25 minutes, and I actually put together that might be really helpful to get for people to understand what the beginning of this whole thing was like for General Mike. But anyway, last week, thank God, of course, with my family's blessing, and it had to be perfect timing for everybody to understand. And when I go through some really critical information next, I'll it had to be the perfect time to for Sidney to have the perfect person, which is Sidney, for General Mike to exercise his right to move to withdraw his plea of guilty because the government has engaged. We know, all of us know, thank God for the outpouring of truth that we've seen unfold over these 3 years in bad faith. The government has engaged in bad faith, of course, corruption, vindictive conduct, and it has, of course, breached the whole plea agreement that they made, which never should have happened in the first place, since he's been cooperating for, almost 3 years now. That doesn't mean that it's a done deal. I know people understand that, but just so there might be some people out there that aren't sure, Sidney also needs to file a finalized motion to withdraw his plea. And that is going to be on Monday. For people that please take notes, feel free to take notes like I do after teaching school for 30 years. So she's got a massive, motion to file on Monday. There's still tons of more information that Sydney has uncovered. And I'm sorry if I sound emotional, but I think back to the beginning of this and his original lawyers, and I just get furious that, it took, God bless Sydney, this hero, and we're operating on a shoestring budget to get through all this, to go through thousands and thousands of documents that they just tossed in her lap after General Mike, thank God, with our encouragement, fired his original lawyers. And I need to get information out to people so they understand why those original lawyers were hired. So Monday's a big day for us. There's still more evidence that Sydney has about the misconduct of the government, the egregious misconduct of the government that she's found. If you guys follow me on Twitter, I retweet everything Sydney puts out. And, so I think one of the things that came out this week that if people watched Devin Nunes, he was on Laura Ingram's show, he came forward, and probably because he now has the ability, he couldn't maybe say it before because head of the Intel committee at the time, he came forward and said he was witness, and he is a witness, part of a group of witnesses that the FBI briefed them that, and he said, quote, Flynn did not lie. So, there's a lot more out there to come. Of course, let me just rewind. We have, we're dealing with a court in D.C. I hate to say the judge's name, but I know you guys all know it. 96% of everybody in D.C. voted for Hillary Clinton. These are never Trumpers, okay? So we have about a 4% chance. And he was so outrageous the last time. He accused General Flynn of treason and turning his back on the White House and all this horrible, outrageous behavior. So Sydney has been piling on and asking for, she put a massive motion together, 40 huge items like the original 302 we've never seen, the original transcript of General Mike's conversation with his legal conversation with Ambassador Kislyak. He's never seen that. Sydney has never seen that. They refuse to turn that over. So the Sullivan has refused all Brady information. In other words, you get nothing because none of it is relevant, is what they were saying. And this was like handing, General Flynn's head to Van Grok, who everybody needs to understand. This special counsel is not over. It is operating and attacking and continuing to try to take down General Mike. And people thought that once Mueller testified, in his disgraceful disaster to Congress, where we saw what a farce it was, but it's still not over. Van Grok is one of the original angry Dems, Obama donors, that is still prosecuting General Mike. And he also ran the FARA case, which is out of the Eastern District of Virginia. And I think, Dave, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of go back and have people get a better idea of why General Mike hired Kellner, this guy Kellner from Covington's law firm in the beginning. Do you mind if I go?
No, go right ahead, because it sets the basis of what's really happening today.
Yeah, I think this will really help people get an idea. So Mike originally hired a guy named Kellner from a law firm named Covington. And Kellner, part of Covington law firm, is considered the top FARA expert in the United States.
And FARA is for the Foreign Agents Registry Act, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll just kind of tell people what that is. It's called. There's a form. If you work with other governments, if you work with other people in other countries, you need to file two forms. People do it all the time. One is called the Lobbying Disclosure Act. That's a form you file if you work for a company from another country, Okay, so if you're working for Toyota, you're going to file a Lobbying Disclosure Act. If you're working for a government, so you file a Foreign Agent Registration Act. Okay, so the problem with this corruption and the special counsel and the fake news media, they spin the word FARA. They leave off Registration Act, which is just a government form, just like an IRS form, or, and they turn it into he's a foreign agent. So they spun it out of control. They got the media, the fake news, to spin this whole FARA form that many people that work with other countries fill out all the time. And over 50 years, there's only been nobody's ever been prosecuted for misfiling it. So anyway, let me get back to Kellner. So he hired Kellner because he's considered in the very beginning, because he was considered the top FARA expert in the United States. And Kellner actually said that when he was at the Rafikian trial. And General Mike hired him in response, and this is really important, so Mike hired Kellner from Covington Law Firm, in response to a letter from the Department of Justice FARA unit, okay? And that was run by a guy named David Laufman. Please look up David Laufman, Laufman. All you have to do is Google David Laufman on Rachel Maddow. He is nasty. So the Department of Justice has another department called the National Security Division.
Right.
And in the National Security Division, they have the FARA unit or FARA division. Mm-hmm. Laufman ran that. Okay. So Mike gets a letter, and he hires this guy, Kellner, from Covington in response to a letter he gets from the FARA unit. And immediately upon getting that letter, he contacts Kellner. And the DOJ sent that letter, and I'm going to give you the date, November 30th, 2016. Now, the thing is, he didn't see that letter until almost a month later because he had closed his business. He was working on the campaign trail the whole year. He only had this small group of really military heroes. He created a company called Flynn Intel Group of very good, big, wonderful military heroes to do consulting for anything. Okay, and so one of the things was this guy, Fethullah Gulen, who's a radical Islamist in our country. Anyway, so he hires Kellner because he gets this crazy letter from the FARA unit, and he doesn't see it for a month, almost a month later, because he closed the business. So the law firm was referred to him by a lawyer who had done work for the company. So Flynn Intel Group and Rafikian, when they needed some compliance help in setting up the company, like the bylaws, they had to fill out this form that you thought they had to fill out. And I'll get to that in a minute. So a guy named Bob Kelly, he's another attorney that Rafikian also hired and did the Lobbying Disclosure Act filing. And you do it, it's a form you file to Congress, but it's through the Department of Justice and the FARA unit. Okay, so when the whole thing became a criminal so then all of a sudden, they turned it into a criminal investigation. They can indict, if they get the right judge, and we now know through the FISA court rubber stamping judges, and in the D.C. swamp, they know which judges to go to. So then they got the right judge to to create a criminal investigation. Of course, they were already doing these counter intel investigations on Mike to try to take him down. So when the whole thing became a criminal investigation, he stayed with Covington or Kellner, and he had the best defense, and with them, and he had the best defense lawyers, and they had done the FARA filing, which was turning into the mess it became. So in other words, he thought he had the best lawyers because they were attacking him with the FARA filing. Okay,
right.
So I hope that everybody understands why Kellner came into this. Okay, so or the original lawyer. Okay, then the lying to the FBI charge was part of the whole Get Flynn Special Counsel Office, because the original 302s, that we've gone back and forth with, we haven't seen the original, but the ones that we have seen have said that General Flynn hasn't lied, and now we know Nunes definitely confirmed it the other night on Ingram that he has actually seen, heard. He's a witness to the FBI brief saying he didn't lie. So where was I? I want to make sure I go through this.
On the line to the FBI, he did not. That's confirmed in FBI. At a minimum, what Nunes was told by the FBI, but undoubtedly also was on the original 302, which is missing. 302 is the form the FBI fills out when they interview somebody. And then they had the FARA investigation, of which General Mike hired this Kellner guy through Covington. By the way, isn't Eric Holder one of the partners in Covington?
Oh
okay,
God.
So he hired them because this is the biggest gun in the city to handle this FARA stuff. But in fact, General Mike was given bad information by Kellner. And in fact, tell me if I'm wrong, Barb, but knowing this, I believe Kellner appears to have set General Mike up because he didn't even have to file any forms.
Well, until Sidney comes out with that, I can't confirm right now, but just kind of wrapping up the lying to the FBI charge was another angle they attacked him once the special counsel took over, okay? Another Get Flynn, special counsel. So coupled with the FARA filing, the Rafikian case of, this conspiracy with a foreign government and then threatening young Mike, his son, because Mike worked on the Flynn Intel Group staff, threatening young Mike and the general with years in prison if he didn't plea. So at every turn, the special counsel office has lied or withheld information in what we know now. And Kellner and any other attorneys involved in this case, and I'm going to say it here, and I know it'll be confirmed eventually, they were all in cahoots with the Department of Justice, Dave. And the special counsel and the Eastern District of Virginia in one way or another. And all of this was to get to the obstruction part of the Trump, narrative. They tried Russian collusion. Then they were trying obstruction via the special counsel, coup, the Mueller coup. So the Brandon Van Grock red line, removing the language, so I'm kind of bringing it now forward, the Brandon Van Grock red line, which is just removing some language in the statement of offense, is big. It is tied directly to Brandon Van Grock wanting Mike to lie in the Rafikian trial and say that, make Mike lie, saying, we lied on the document, on the government form, which is not true at all. That's not the case at all. There's so much stuff, because there's no direct, clean line to any crime. So in other words, these dirty cops have no direct line, no clean line to any crime by General Mike, because there was no crime, by Mike from the very beginning. So it was all about, this corrupt, abuse of power to take out General Mike, because they knew, well, first of all, he was the only one with the courage to stand up, and I've told you this before, to this abuse of power. He saw it, and he's the only one capable of really dismantling this corruption, too. I mean, we're talking about the intelligence community. He's the only one, and, I mean, we're fighting, the CIA, Brennan, and Comey, the FBI and the DOJ and the State Department, too, and he's the only one, and thank God for all the great patriots out there that have allowed us to endure this and get to this point where we feel very, very confident in what information we now know. And thank God for Sidney. We're operating on a shoestring budget because of all the great patriots out there helping us. And I mean, I don't know how we would have lasted 3 years without everybody's help. But let me just kind of get back to the FARA filing. Okay, because I don't know if people heard me before the last time I talked on the show. So for about 3 months, Mike's small company of these great, retired military guys and retired senior FBI guys. They were doing consulting. And the FARA filing, he didn't even need to file it. Mm-hmm. So Kellner had him file the government FARA form when he wasn't even working for any Turkish government at all. He was working for a company who the guy that ran the company was a guy from Turkey. And he was going to write, and that turned out that Rafikian wrote the op-ed on Gulen, and they ended up writing an article on a guy named Fethullah Gulen. Okay, so they weren't working anywhere for any kind of Turkish government. Now, people, don't understand that the pressure to file. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Sorry, I need to back up. So, when Mike filed the FARA form, he had the number one law firm in the country. He hired them because of the pressure from the FARA department. Also, when he filed the FARA department, because I was at the trial, the Rafikian trial for 2 weeks with Sydney, because I really needed to understand this, the FARA department was a witness on the stand, and they said that they helped fill out the FARA form. So not only did he have the number one law firm in the country fill out his FARA filing government form, he also had help. They also had help from the FARA department. The guy admitted under oath on the witness stand that they also helped fill out the FARA form. So now we are here where Mike, is saying Sydney comes along and the special counsel disaster is over, except for Van Grack, who's still trying to read. They lost the case in the Eastern District of Virginia because the Judge Trenga threw out that case against his partner. They went after his business partner to try to target General Mike again, because if they went after his business partner, they were now going after his small company, the Flynn Intel Group. His young son was working there, and they then Van Grack got mad because here we are 2 years later. Mike fires the lawyers,